My name is Tim Otitoju, and I've lived in Regina, Canada for 30 years.
My name is Vuyo Ginindza. I am an international student from the Kingdom of Eswatini. I am here with Mr. Tim Otitoju, and we're both here to share our experiences as immigrants, to compare our parallels, and to hopefully have a very insightful discussion. So, Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
What was the biggest culture shock for you when you first came to Canada?
When I first got here, I found Regina especially to be it's not more community based. You feel almost alone, right? Now we also have to go back to the 90s when I came here. Is that there weren't a lot of black people here, right? The black people that were here, we all pretty much knew each other. We all pretty much got together, like, you know what I mean? You see each other at Superstore, you said hi to each other, right? So it was a shock coming here and not seeing a lot of people that looked like me, right? And you look at all the movies, right? It was gangsters, rappers, drug dealers, and that's how they portrayed black people in the movies, right? And when we're in a city like Regina, where you don't have a big black population, for some people, their first interaction or their first view of a black person is on the screen. So then when they see you for the first time, sometimes they project that onto you, right? I can't remember exactly where it was, but I remember seeing an older lady struggling in the snow. And I went, it must have been 13 and 14, and I went to try and help, right? And it was like, don't touch me, right? And almost like scared, right? And I'm thinking, like, why?
My
Like,
intentions are
I'm just trying to help. I see you struggling in the snow, you're carrying a bag, and I just want to help. But I walked away. It wasn't until a few years later that I understood what happened, because it always bugged me, like, okay, what did I do wrong, right? But it took me a few years to really understand what happens, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, though, Regina has also changed a lot since when I got here.
I can imagine.
Right, Regina is way more diverse now than what it was in the 90s.
So I'm just wondering, you've touched briefly on this, but having grown up in a country where everyone looks like you and you are all, I'm assuming, speaking your mother tongue most of the time, and then moving to a country where you are the minority, what did that do anything to you? How did you react to that?
Well, as a kid, you just want to fit in. As a kid, you just want friends and you want to fit in and you don't want to feel different, right? So you tend to lose a little bit of yourself. You tend to lose a little bit of your culture. I remember when we moved here, our parents sat us down and said, okay, we're here in Regina. There's not a lot of people that are going to look like you. The culture is really different than what you're used to. And the advice that they gave us was that, every culture has its good and bad. We want you to keep the good in our Nigerian culture or Yoruba culture. And that is big on respect, right? Hard work. And that we maintain parts of our culture, but they also allowed us to also experience the Canadian culture as well, right? To also learn new things and have new experiences and like new things that are part of the Canadian culture, right? So I find that now, I'm in my 40s, I've been here for 30 years. I find, and I'm a very proud Nigerian, I find that when I'm even talking to some Nigerians, they'll be like, no, you're not Nigerian anymore. You're Canadian.
Wow.
Right? So in my 40s now, I find myself where I'm like, okay, well, I was born in Nigeria. I lived in Nigeria for 11 years out of my life. I'm very proud of the country that I'm from. I've lived in Canada for 30 years. I'm very proud to be Canadian. And I'm trying to find that identity, right? Where, the Nigerians that are new here will say, nope, you're not Nigerian anymore. But Canadians don't look at you as Canadian. They still see you as the black guy. Or so somewhere in between. And, and I look at my kids, and my kids are mixed between Canadian and Nigerian. And I wonder how they're going to fit in, right? And I wonder what kind of identity they're going to have, right? Because, they're not black, they're not white, right? So like, how are they going to fit in the society? So I keep an eye on that, and I kind of watch them, and like when they struggle with, like, my kids are 12 and 10, and they've struggled with racism in school. And I've had to go and talk to the school principal about certain things that were said, right? Like, like they've been called the N-word in school, right? And they're mixed race, right? So I've seen that struggle with them, so I kind of keep an eye out and kind of see how they navigate it, because as a parent, I want to kind of do it the same way that my parents did, which they allowed us to figure it out and allowed us to learn to deal with the situations and not jump in, right? So kind of allowing my kids to do the same thing too, and try to find their identity and where they belong and how they navigate those adversities, right?
It's very interesting that you mention identity. Because I'm curious to know how you felt about this. When you, granted, of course, you were young, but when you moved to Canada, I'm assuming the words black, minority, or person of color were prescribed to you. How did you react to that? How did that make you feel?
Well, the word minority, you just always feel it. You are the minority, and you just always feel it. Some people around you make you feel it, right? The word black, sure, it didn't bother me at all, because I'm proud of the skin that I'm in, even though I'm trying to figure it out. And as an 11-year-old, you don't know too much yet, right? So, but I do remember the first time I was called the N-word. I remember feeling anger, feeling like I need to get out and avenge and get revenge. And, I remember feeling that multiple times, right? But then, like, as it goes on, you just learn to kind of just understand that, like, with it bothering you so much, you're letting them have space in your head. The N-word was a derogatory word given to us by Europeans, right? And it connotates slavery, right? And when I was old enough to start doing mindset work with myself, and I start to tell myself that word is not going to bother me, because I am nobody's slave, right? I am nobody's slave. Obviously, if somebody said it to me today, I will let them know that, no, it's inappropriate. But in my mind, I won't let it take up space, because I'm nobody's slave.
I remember when I was first called the N-word, I was, walking down Safeway and Cathedral, minding my own business, as I always am. And then some black truck speeds past me, and a white guy rolls down his window and cusses me out and says the N-word. And I was shocked, because no one had ever said it to me before. And then as I'm still trying to figure out what's happening, as I'm walking towards Safeway, he turns the corner and says it again. At this point, I cuss him out in every language I can speak.
Yeah.
But that word, it did not, and I suspect it's because I've spent more time on the continent than other immigrants. It irritated me at most, but it did not pierce my skin the way he hoped it would.
Yeah.
Because I guess same as you, I know that I'm not anyone's slave, but also I am African and I'm proud of it. And also I recognize that because I am secure in who I am, and because I'm secure in my culture and I have pride in it, I am not intimidated by other people's cultures. So I feel no need to belittle Asian people or indigenous people or Latinos or anything like that, because I'm secure in who I am in myself. So I recognize that people who behave like that, anyone who feels the need to use the N-word or any other derogatory racial slur, you're insecure, basically.
No, for sure. You want to know something? As I got older in my 20s, I have a really close group of friends. And if we go to the bar and someone uses the N-word, my white friends were more offended than we were.
Wow.
My white friends were more offended than we were, right? And what that showed me is that, that racism is learned, right? It's not innate, it's learned. And that people are still caring people. So to me, I feel like it's more about education down the line, and not just that blanketing everybody. I'll give an example. About a year ago, some kids were playing hockey, and one kid, both Caucasians, my son plays hockey, and one kid calls the other kid an N-word, and the other kid calls the other one an N-word. They're both Caucasians. The ref hears it, it turns into a suspension and everything like that. The kids didn't know what they did wrong, right? They did not know what they did wrong. So when the coaches actually explained to the kids why this word is wrong, these kids felt so bad, right? Because it's not that they're hearing it at home, but remember, pop culture, music, right? Right? Like music that we put out as Black people, it's used all the time in it, right? So to them, it's just part of the, they just think it's music and part of the culture of the hip hop culture or whatever it is, right? So they felt really bad. And even though my son was not involved in this altercation whatsoever, did not hear this whatsoever, the touching part of it is that this kid came to my son the next time he saw him and apologized to my son for using that word, right? So little things like that just makes me believe in humanity, that we could get to a point where you and I will not have to have, like, people will not have to have that same experience that you and I had. Obviously, there's work to be done to make sure that there's equality for everybody and that there's less stereotypes, less bias and things like that. But we also have to celebrate the good things as well, right? That our city has to offer, right? And that's really been my experience. It's just keeping on to the positive, holding on to the positive, celebrating diversity. Right?
Yeah, no, I can relate to that as well. I mean, I've been here 4-5-ish years, and at this point, I can cook jollof. I can't make it smoky, unfortunately. I've tried everything. I can't make it smoky. But I've learned so much from just other people's cultures. I mean, I had never met an indigenous person before I came to North America at all. I knew nothing about them at all. And I've also, I did also notice that oftentimes a lot of the misconceptions people have about other cultures simply come from a lack of exposure to other cultures. And this is not to say you must go out of your way to be friends with every race, but just, attending a powwow, attending a quinceañera, just stuff like just exposing yourself.
Look beyond, right? Get to know the other cultures that exist within our communities, right? Get to know how Canadians like to do things, the Canadian way. Like, embrace where we are. Right?
Yeah.
Embrace where we are, embrace the beautiful country that we're in, while you still maintain a piece of yourself and a piece of your identity, right? Just to make sure you keep your identity, but you can still embrace everything that this community has to offer, because this community offers a lot, right? It's not up to me to tell you how to live your life, but like, if you look beyond, you'll see a lot of positive, beautiful things that are here, but still, still try to maintain a piece of yourself and not lose it all, right? Because really, that's what makes Canada, Canada, right? Everybody maintains a little piece of their identity while they embrace the larger beauty of the country.
That makes perfect sense. I think that'll be where we conclude our interview. So I want to say thank you so much
for joining us. Thank you so much for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you to everyone here at CBC for creating the space for us. And that is all for now. Thank you very much.